I love Destiny 2, but my biggest problem with the game is its tendency to require absurd grinds for some of the best loot. The greatest offender of this issue is the Monument to Lost Lights. If you're newer to the game, you might not even be aware that the monument exists, let alone how it works, so I'll start with some history. The Monument to Lost Lights is Bungie's solution to a problem that was created by removing legacy content from the game, usually referred to as sunsetting. This is a controversial practice that began with the release of Beyond Light in 2020, when Bungie removed a significant amount of content from the game, including the original Destiny 2 campaign The Red War, Curse of Osiris, Warmind, the Io, Titan, Mercury, and Mars patrol spaces, all of the quests that were linked to those locations, the Leviathan, its 4 raids, Scourge of the Past, adventures, and a variety of seasonal content. This move was extremely controversial because all of this content had been paid for by large groups of players. Furthering the issue, some of the newest content that was sunset had only been in the game a year at that point. With the release of Witch Queen in 2022, the Forsaken campaign, the Tangled Shore patrol space, all of the associated quests with that location, and all remaining seasonal content before Witch Queen was sunset. Sunsetting orphaned a variety of weapons that Bungie wanted to keep in the game, primarily the exotics from sunset content. Bungie attempted to fix this problem with the Monument to Lost Lights, a kiosk that was introduced as a new source for players to obtain exotics whose original sources had been sunset. Bungie didn't want to add these exotics to the exotic Engram loot pool, or Xur's rotation of featured exotics, because it would dramatically increase the amount of loot obtained from those sources, making random drops an even bigger problem than they already are. My problem with this system, beyond the anti-consumer practice of deleting content people paid for, is that it's a huge grind for new lights who want to obtain these weapons. I only played Destiny a small amount prior to sunsetting because I didn't have friends who would play the game with me, and didn't get into the game in earnest until the Witch Queen era when I finally found a group to play with. When I returned to the game, I only had a couple of exotics, but I wanted to get more of them. The primary way to buy weapons from the monument is paying a variety of currencies to purchase a weapon, many of which, particularly exotic ciphers, the game doesn't tell new players how to obtain. This is a big problem, especially if you don't have friends who will explain the game to you. New players shouldn't have to Google the drop sources of currencies to find out how to acquire them. A well-designed game would naturally introduce systems to the player within the gameplay loop, something Destiny 2 is currently failing to do. The primary way to get exotic ciphers is to go speak to Xur, a vendor that only appears from Friday reset until Tuesday reset, and spawns at a random choice of 3 locations: the Tower Hangar, Watcher's Grave on Nessus, and the Winding Cove in the EDZ. Each week, if you don't have an exotic cipher, Xur will allow you to pick up the xenology quest. This quest has 2 steps. First, you complete 21 ritual activities, which includes strikes in the Vanguard playlist and winning Gambit or Crucible matches. Finally, you return to Xur to receive the cipher. Each cipher can be used to purchase a single exotic. However, purchasing an exotic also requires other currencies obtained elsewhere in the game. On paper, this doesn't sound bad, but it's an extremely grindy process that's getting worse with each successive season. Other sources of exotic ciphers are usually paid. Buying the Forsaken pack now gives the player 3 exotic ciphers, and each season pass usually has an exotic cipher somewhere in the latter half of the ranks. Sometimes these ciphers are found as part of the free portion of the season pass ranks, which is generally a good thing. As I tried to fill out my collections by purchasing as many monuments from the exotic as I could afford, I began to feel like the process was way more of a grind than I thought it should be, so I decided to calculate the total cost to the player of obtaining every exotic from the monument. What I found was very discouraging. At the beginning of Season of the Seraph, the current and final season of the Witch Queen era, Bungie simplified the Destiny 2 economy by removing planetary materials from the game, a set of currencies unique to each patrol zone that were previously used to purchase some exotics from the monument. This reduced the grind a little bit, as last season season I had to additionally grind lost sectors to get planetary materials to obtain some weapons. For example, one night I spent a few hours running a single Dreaming City lost sector because I realized it was the fastest way to get the 250 Baryon Bow required to purchase Whisper of the Worm. At the time of recording, there are 41 exotic weapons in the Monument to Lost Lights. This means you need a total of 41 exotic ciphers to purchase every exotic. If you grinded a xenology quest every single week, it would take you 41 weeks to get every exotic. However, this is pretty optimistic because completing a xenology quest is tedious and usually takes me longer than a week each. Unless you're a big PvP gamer who can reliably win every Crucible or Gambit match you play, which isn't the case for most new lights, the most reliable way to complete the xenology quest is to run strikes. On average, including load times, each strike takes about 15 minutes, meaning completing 21 strikes would take 5 hours and 15 minutes. To complete one xenology quest a week, you actually only have 4 days to complete the quest because you need to return to Xur to get the cipher, and he's only available 4 days a week. To achieve this goal, you would need to run an average of 5¼ strikes every single Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. I haven't even mentioned yet that there aren't even 21 unique strikes. Currently, in the Vanguard playlist, there are only 15 strikes and 4 Season of the Chosen Battlegrounds, adding to a total of only 19 unique activities. This means you'll need to replay strikes multiple times each week, which can get pretty boring. A total of 9 strikes are currently not playable, having been sunset, meaning Destiny 2 has only ever had 28 unique activities in the strike playlist. To obtain every exotic from the Monument, you would need to complete 861 ritual activities, requiring 215 hours and 15 minutes of playtime spread out over a minimum of 41 weeks, which is honestly absurd. In that time, assuming you use the strike method, you would play each strike an average of 45.3 times. However, there are a few ways to speed this process up. If you use your Forsaken Pack ciphers, it reduces the xenology quests you need to 38, meaning you only need to play 798 activities over 199.5 hours. This would take a minimum of 38 weeks, and you would play each strike an average of 42 times. However, over those 38 weeks, you'll probably be able to obtain an average of 3 ciphers from seasonal ranks, reducing the requirement to 35 xenology quests, 735 activities, 183 hours and 45 minutes over 35 weeks, and 38.7 runs of each strike. There's only one more way to reduce the activities required. You receive double xenology progress for each ritual activity you complete with a clanmate, reducing the number of activities per week to 11. Used with 100% efficiency, something most players, especially new lights, won't be able to do, the requirements drop to 385 activities, 96 hours, and 15 minutes. You and your clanmate would run each strike an average of 18.3 times. This sounds more reasonable, but we haven't even taken into account the other currencies you need to purchase each weapon. This would require 46 Ascendant Shards, 960 Spoils of Conquest, 6,450 Legendary Shards, and 4,625,000 Glimmer. Each currency is acquired from different methods. Glimmer and Legendary Shards are the easiest to get as they form the bedrock of Destiny 2's economy and have a wide variety of sources. However, the player's Glimmer is capped at 250,000, meaning you would need to reach the cap 18 times to purchase every exotic in the Monument. The Spoils and Ascendant Shards are much more difficult to obtain. Spoils of Conquest are only obtainable by running raids, as each encounter gives the player roughly 5 spoils. This means you would need to run 192 raid encounters, which is 4 times the inventory cap of 240. Finally, Ascendant Shards are the rarest currency in Destiny 2. The most reliable source is Grandmaster Nightfalls, which drop 1 to 3 Ascendant Shards per completion. This means you would need to complete an average of 23 GM Nightfalls. However, GM Nightfalls are some of the most difficult content in the game, so many players struggle to complete them, let alone farm them for currency. An alternative, far slower and more tedious source of Ascendant Shards is Banshee bounties. Every day, Banshee allows each player character to purchase 4 bounties that reward an enhancement core. These bounties are relatively easy to complete, and if you're utilizing 3 different characters, you can earn 12 12 enhancement cores per day. Then you can exchange enhancement cores for Ascendant shards via the Cryptarch at an exchange rate of 100 enhancement cores per Ascendant shard. This means you would need to grind 12 bounties from Banshee every single day for 384 days straight to obtain the necessary 46 shards, which again is absurd. All of these currencies add up to an additional impossible to quantify playtime requirement to obtain every exotic from the monument. Each successive season, the monument receives new exotics. Each season pass rewards an exotic that is no longer obtainable during the next season. Thus, each seasonal exotic is added to the monument. Additionally, at the start of each new expansion, the previous year's seasonal content is sunset, meaning that any seasonal exotic quests are removed. When Lightfall drops, the Witch Queen seasonal content will be sunset, meaning the exotic kiosk will receive 3 more weapons, bringing the total to 44. I also haven't included Quicksilver Storm in my calculations, which is picked up from the monument but is currently awarded upon pre-ordering Lightfall. After the release of Lightfall, I predict that Quicksilver Storm will likely just be purchasable from the kiosk for anyone who didn't pre-order, meaning the total number of exotics to chase will go up to 45. A mitigating factor is that the Strike playlist will expand with the introduction of the 6 Witch Queen seasonal battlegrounds, bringing the total number of Strike activities to 25. Lightfall will also likely introduce 1 to 2 new strikes, meaning we will have 26 or 27 strikes to choose from. Bungie hasn't announced any additional sunsetting for Lightfall's release, so hopefully we won't see more content placed into the monument. I hope this video has illustrated the point that sunsetting is a massive problem that the Monument to Lost Lights fails to fix, instead implementing a ridiculous grind that is incredibly unfriendly to new players. I hope Bungie can find a way in the future to bring back some of the sunset content to reduce the ever-expanding grind of the monument. However, I doubt this will happen anytime soon. I have a few suggestions for how to reduce the grind the monument creates without sacrificing the prestige of obtaining every exotic. The costs for weapons are already steep without the artificial cost of exotic ciphers, particularly the Ascendant Shard and Spoils of Conquest requirements. I think it would be very reasonable to make exotic ciphers easier to obtain. I would suggest reducing the xenology quest down to a maximum of something like 5 to 10 activity completions per week. That way new players are still incentivized to log in regularly, but you don't have to dump an inordinate amount of time into ritual activities just to get a single exotic. I think an average of 1 to 2 activities per day isn't unreasonable. I also think the diversity of ritual activities is a major problem with the xenology quest. To ease this problem, I would suggest increasing the number of activities that count towards the xenology quest. Completing weekly campaign missions and other PvE activities like Wellspring and Dares of Eternity should count towards xenology progress. That way the player isn't locked into a small subset of the game when going for new exotics. I also think the quest would benefit from removing the unnecessary barrier of returning to Xur for the cipher, as he isn't available every day. If you could purchase or turn in the quest to get the cipher from Xur in the treasure hoard, it would cut down on some of the arbitrary frustration that comes from completing your quest and being unable to get the cipher because Xur has left until next Friday. I also think the system would benefit from introducing more opportunities to acquire ciphers outside of the xenology quest. The best idea I've come up with for an alternative source is to make exotic ciphers a common reward that can only drop once or twice per account per week for clearing the weekly rotator raid or soloing the rotator dungeon. This decreases the amount of xenology quests required while also rewarding players for engaging with endgame PvE content. Another quality of life suggestion that isn't really monument specific but would definitely help the monument is to significantly raise currency caps so you don't have to potentially waste currencies that overflow past the cap just so that you can purchase things from the monument. Make sure to let me know what you think of the Monument to Lost Lights in the comments of this video. Is it fair? Do you have any suggestions for how it could be improved? I'd love to hear what both new lights and veteran players think of the monument and sunsetting in general. As always, my name is E4Me, and I would like to thank you for taking the time to watch this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to like and subscribe.